All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. I hope everybody is doing well. Tonight, we are going to pick up where we left off on the stream last week, and we're going to continue with our ItemDB work. And I'm actually hoping that we can get to the C portion of that tonight, in terms of actually reading it into the game engine. But there's a couple things that we need to do before that to ensure that our file format is good and all that kind of stuff. And that is we need to actually read that in here to pull up these items by default, so that we're not just using sort of pre-set items that we have here. So we've got a couple more things to do on this side, and then we can finally jump back over to the other side of things. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to just take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our elite partner, Javier Lazaron. That is the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships / Patreon, followed by our partners, Gerbolis Inc. and Matt Alsgaard. That is the next tier of subscription over there. And then finally, by our supporters. This is a combination of all the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. Those funds will directly go to this project that we're working on now, in terms of hosting fees, licensing, eventually assets, things of that nature. So every little bit helps. I don't have any sponsors, of course. All I have is you guys. So any support there is greatly appreciated, including all of the viewers, whether you're joining us live on the YouTube side or the Twitch side. I greatly appreciate you guys. So thank you very much for being here. All right. So let me just see here. I feel like my music track just sort of stopped playing for a second. For some reason. Yeah, it's not coming through. Give me 1 second to just troubleshoot that for a second. I'm not sure why that all of a sudden quit playing. I don't think you guys can hear that either, right? I'm going to troubleshoot this for a couple seconds here, and if we don't, for some reason, fix it. There we go. Okay, I think it's fixed. Okay, all right. Let me catch up on chat. Singy, good to see you over there on the YouTube side. Spiro, you're on both sides. I appreciate it, buddy. How's it going? Tazdij, good to see you. Finally get to catch you live. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Glad to have you here. All right, so as I was talking about before, where we are sort of picking up is we have our item editor here, and we've done most of the development work I think that needs to be done, at least for now, in terms of getting our fields in here and all of our different support for our item types and whatnot. And so, we can click on different items and bring up the definitions of those things, and that's all well and good, as well as our strings, our localized strings, for different languages and things like that. We've got that support in here as well. So in the last stream, we were actually focused on exporting the binary file for this. And so I actually want to pick up where we left off last time. So that's going to be here's the HTML, and I'm actually going to put the JavaScript on the left. So let's see. Let's do main.js. Okay, so right now what we're essentially doing when we load this up, and actually let me just expand out my my stuff here. Okay, so we have our item editor is basically this index HTML file and a main.js file that contains all of our code, right? And that exports to a itemdb.bin. So this is a binary file that contains our actual database, right? So it's laid out as efficiently as possible in memory in a very data-oriented sort of aspect. And so the idea is that we are going to use this ItemDB as the source of our items to load into the editor, as well as the export target. And essentially, we are running the site using live server. And so live server, what it essentially does is when it runs, anytime it detects a change in one of the files within that folder that you're running it against, it refreshes the current page. So the beauty of this is whenever we export our item database, what that's going to cause is a refresh of the page, which will reload this ItemDB. And so just by exporting it and plopping it down here into the same folder, we will automatically get the latest version of all of those items pulled up for us. And eventually we'll do some stuff to kind of enhance it, maybe a little bit, to make it, maybe remember the last item we were on or something along those lines. But basically our next goal is going to be to get rid of these hard-coded strings that we have in here and these hard-coded items, and instead load them from the ItemDB. So with all of that said, let's see, I don't remember if we completed all of the item entries. I believe we did. Let's see. So we have all of the item entries here. So it looks like, I think, just refreshing my memory here, we wrote out all the strings as well. To that. Yeah, okay. So it looks like to me that our export process is probably done, assuming we haven't bollocksed anything, right? So essentially we've got this export button here. We can export this, and then we would set this to, let's see, this is going to be development, Illumina, and then, whoops, not the K app. I want tools, item editor, and then we will essentially overwrite itemdb.bin. So we want to overwrite that, and you can see here that that caused a refresh, right? So that's generally the way that we're going to go ahead and do this. So now we need to sort of work on the import of that and start reading that in and see if we have indeed exported our data correctly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to basically work kind of to undo everything that we have within this export binary file. And we are going to fill out the import binary file, right? So we've already got the sort of scaffolded stuff here to read the file. And if we take a look at the logs, we can see the magic number here is being read in from the header. So, we're thinking the header is probably fine. But essentially what I'm going to do is we are going to repeat all of these operations, but in the opposite direction. So we're going to essentially read from them. So the first thing I'm going to do is, before we actually nuke any of our data or any of our test data that is present in here that we've sort of hard-coded, the very first thing that I'm going to do is go through and read everything and just echo it to the console, just so we can kind of see everything that we've got in there. LSR, good to see you. How have you been? Glad I can catch your stream properly. Was super busy with work the last couple weeks. I totally understand that. Let's see. Why do I have you followed? Software, yes, but I can't remember why. Been a while since I've been on Twitch. That's a good question, but we are building a game engine from scratch in C. This is obviously ostensibly not C that you're looking at right now. We're actually working on a game using that game engine, and we're currently building out a item editor for the action RPG that we're making. So maybe that was why. I assume you're into game development and in game engine development. I assume that's why you followed me in the first place. But welcome back. Had some time off, been diving in pretty deep into my current game project. Awesome. What kind of game are you working on, LSR? Let's see. 25th over there on the YouTube side. Good to see you as well. Now I know what a programmer who specs into a bard's beard and wizard's temperament look like. Let's see. How hard was it building your own engine? I'm considering the same with Raylib and SDL3, but for later, as in later before I make 1 or 2 games under my belt. Yeah, okay. So to break that down, because there's a couple things in there I'd want to address, right? So I get this question a lot: is it worth building your own game engine before building the game? And that answer, with a lot of things, as a lot of things are in programming in general, is it depends. It depends on what your goals are, right? So if your goal is to make a game as quickly as possible, obviously you're probably not going to want to do that, right? And I say that knowing that I run a channel about building game engines, right? However, what I always do suggest is that you get a little bit of experience using existing game engines out there, even if you want to make your own, so that you understand what's out there on a high level, how they work, and to kind of understand the concepts of what some of the game engine features might be that you want to develop, right? So use some different ones. Make sure you use Unity. Make sure you use Unreal. Make sure you use a couple of libraries that you mentioned, or frameworks like Raylib, right? I would definitely say try a lot of those things and see what you like about it the best. If you decide that you kind of want to dive deeper into it and really understand it, then yes, game engine development is the way to go. 9 times out of 10, unless you're making a huge project that involves a lot of people stepping in to develop with you, in a lot of cases, if you're familiar with programming concepts and familiar with how to actually do graphics programming, even on a basic level, creating your own engine and building your game on top of that engine, or just building the game and the engine as all one unit, is very rewarding. And the advantages of it are you only build what you need. And if you run into a bug, you can fix it on your own, or research how to fix it, right? But that's a double-edged sword too, because you have to fix any bugs in your own engine by yourself. It's up to you to fix those bugs. But if you're dealing with a closed source engine like Unity that's got a bug, you're stuck with that bug until they fix it, if they fix it, right? So there's pros and cons to everything. In terms of how hard it is, I chose kind of a hard route for this. So I chose to do the game engine in C, and I also chose to use Vulkan, right? Which a lot of people would say those are probably more difficult options to have taken. And I also went the route of not using any libraries in my core runtime. So that means no SDL, no Raylib, things like that. I did a lot of that stuff because this is kind of an educational channel, and it's showing a way to build a game engine from the ground up without using those things, right? So we kind of deep dive into a lot of those topics. You don't necessarily have to do that, right? If you're wanting to build something of your own, using a framework is okay sometimes, right? It depends on what your goals are. Let's see. For me right now, that theoretical engine is now Godot. I love it the most. However, I like hacking with Raylib, right? So Raylib is a great place to start in terms of learning this stuff, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want to dive into, what interests you the most. If you are going to write your own tech, just be aware that it's going to take you quite a lot longer to develop your game. Until you get that tech developed, right? Like once that tech is in place and things are running, then fine. You'll probably actually wind up being faster at it than using a commercial game engine and trying to shoehorn that into doing what you want it to do. But yeah, I hope that helps. I realize that was kind of a long answer, but first game, by the way, is a 3D low poly isometric RPG, so I think I'm safe in Godot. Yep, and that's essentially what we're going to be building here too. So, yeah, I think that's a good decision. And the thing is, you can always prototype it and go out and then be like, before you get too far, look into some things like OpenGL or using Raylib or something like that. You may decide that you want to go your own custom tech route as well. Let me see. Maybe if I saw the game, I'd remember. Sorry, it was a while back. Wasn't meant to be WTF. Why am I following you, lol? Yeah. I mean, you never know. I've gotten that too before, right? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I get that. Yeah. So the game we're working on has just been started. Actually, we do have, and I'm not sure exactly when you followed me, so it's kind of hard to answer this. But let me pull up this and see if it jogs your memory. Give me a second here. The web is being slow. Actually, I don't think it's the web. I think it's Incarnate that's just being slow. Here we go. Loading. Okay. So maybe you've seen this. Like, this is kind of our world map for the RPG that we're making. So I don't know if this rings any bells. Maybe that was it, or maybe you followed me from way before this. I'm not sure. Maybe it was C related. It's a 3D game. Oh wait a minute. Let me scroll backwards here for a second. Yeah, what we're making is a 3D game, if that was what your question was. Okay, so LSR, you're working on a 2D game, SFML, about to get some simple shaders running. Sweet. Have a couple ideas I want to work on. So far, mainly been working on the engine part of it. Yeah, you'll be there for a bit. But first of all, I'm working on a sort of base building farming sim with a twist. Sweet. That sounds awesome. Well, keep me posted for sure. Biggest thing is I really like working code. I think I get a little overwhelmed with the context switching when it comes to working in an engine. You mean like a commercial engine like Unreal? I fully agree. The overhead of, like, to me, using visual scripting, like, that's the example I always fall back on. With these commercial engines, visual scripting to me is actually too much overhead, mental overhead. I'd much rather just write the code. I get why it's there. I get why people like it, but yeah. Have yet to touch Vulkan. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Use GL until you're comfortable with it. Did you make that map? Yes, I did make this map. Yeah, this is the map of our world for the RPG. Don't remember that. Showed a 3D stuff if you can. So I don't have anything really to show in terms of the game yet. We literally have just started it, right? So part of what we're doing here is we've been doing engine development for like the last 4 years, right? And we've just recently switched over to game development. But this is the first thing that we're developing against the engine. So there's going to be a lot of, we get a couple small things in, and then crap, we need something in the engine, go back to the engine. Put that thing in, go back to the game. And eventually that's going to shift more and more towards just game development. But right now we're still sort of touching the engine all the time. So what we're actually working on right now is kind of the opposite of that. So in this case, we're actually building an item editor / localized string database that we're going to need for the game. So this is game specific. This is not part of the engine. And so what we have here is basically a list of strings in different languages, so that we support localization out of the box, because that is a big deal to me. And then we have this, this sort of item editor here that we're going to use to generate a ItemDB. We're calling it ItemDB for now. I think it's going to be bigger than that. Binary file that we then load into the game in C code. So we're building this now. I'm hoping to actually get this mostly finalized tonight, and then get working on the actual C code to load this in. So the map is actually made in Incarnate. So that's just this URL right there. And yeah, it's a pretty good tool. You can actually add some pretty detailed things here. Now this is kind of the low resolution version of this. I can pull up like an 8K version of this map if I wanted to, but it takes a bit to export that. But while you're editing, you just kind of load the low resolution version of it so that you can quickly work with it. But yeah, this is the work in progress, right? So the world is called Illumina. The game is called Shadows of Illumina. So we've got a bit of a loose outline of a bunch of different things that we want to include, and that's 29-page document so far. And this is kind of where we're at on the world map so far. So this, there's 3 continents. There's Dravenholm, there's Thaldor, and Velora. And so Thaldor is the one that's probably completed the most and has the most lore behind it. In addition to Dravenholm's got a decent amount of lore behind it as well. Velora is still very much under construction. We do have some lore around this bit, but yeah, we still have a lot to go. So yeah, this is very much in progress, but we're actually going to get back to a little bit more world building stuff as well. So one of the things that we're going to do for this project, and we already have done actually, is this is not just going to be a pure programming stream going into the future. We are going to be developing assets on here. We are going to be doing world building. We've already done a lot of world building on stream about the different people around the different continents and some of their history and a whole bunch of that stuff. And then obviously asset creation and stuff like that. So we have lots of stuff that we're going to be doing. Let's see. So that's what happened to the racing game you were making. So I shelved the racing game for now. And the reason I did that was because I did a little more thorough market research, and the racing / combat game, vehicle combat games are not doing well right now in the market. And I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. So I really didn't want to make something that's just isn't going to sell, frankly. So I tabled it. I've not thrown it out. We still have the bones for that game, but I decided to shelve it for now, just because the industry or the market really doesn't seem to want that right now. Are you using React for that? So, are you talking about for this? We're not actually using any frameworks for this, and this is kind of the same philosophy that we're following for the game engine. This editor is purely just raw HTML and JavaScript and CSS. We're not using any frameworks, nothing for this whatsoever. You were one of the people who inspired me to try to program low-level stuff. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you found it useful. Awesome. What do you think of Handmade Hero? So I think Handmade Hero is an awesome series. You should definitely check it out. You should definitely go through it. There's lots of information packed in there. I think it's on hiatus right now, and I think it has been for quite some time. I'm not sure what Casey's plan is to finish that or not finish it. I don't actually know. But I know it's on hiatus. But regardless, even if he doesn't ever finish it, there's still a lot of really good info in there, and I highly recommend it. I was at least here for your design doc showcase. That's why I asked, because I know you're doing an ISO RPG, I think. Yes, exactly. Yep. By the way, how can people cheat for games like aimbot and this stuff? Is it hard, by the way? I'm not an expert on this low stuff. Just know Python, but can you tell me how they do that? So that is a bit of a large topic. So I'll sum it up this way. There are many, many, many ways to cheat. One of the oldest ways is to directly hack the game's memory, right? So that when the game is loaded into memory, somebody has basically reverse engineered that to figure out where certain variables are stored in memory based off of the actual layout of the application, and they can overwrite those variables with something else. So, things like adding stupid large numbers of health and things like that. So that's one form of it, right? Is just like hardcore, just going in and bashing around bits of memory. There's also other things that people use to hack shaders to make people appear in like red instead of being invisible behind a wall or something. So there's all kinds of ways for people to cheat. They can use network vulnerabilities, intentionally lagging client server communications for online games. There's lots of exploits that way, right? It's really like a really wide variety of things that you can do. So it's not really something I can answer in 30 seconds, but that's, suffice it to say, it's a very wide spectrum of things that can be done. Built a software renderer and used some of your earlier videos for some general purpose guidelines on that. Very enjoyable watching the journey. Awesome. Carrie, that's really cool. I've thought about writing a software renderer for this engine just because. Not that I really need one, but like just because. I think it might be a fun exercise at some point. That's really cool that you've written one, though. That's quite awesome. Sukelos, good to see you. Let's see. VAC ban incoming. I guess it depends on what is client side and server side too. Yes, highly depends. Yep. I think a lot of the original cheats were developer tools that were found accessed by players. That's another good point. Yes. Like the classic NES up, down, left, right, BA. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the Konami code. Up, down, left, right, BA, select, start. Yeah. The old school, give me 30 lives in Contra. Yep. Permanently ingrained in my memory. All right. I've actually used that code for Easter eggs and stuff I've written in the past. Anyway. There might wind up being one of those in this game. One of them. Or a dozen of them. Or hundreds, who knows. All right. So, let's see. I guess we probably don't need to print out all of these entries anymore. So let's see. Let's get rid of some of these old console logs, right? We'll keep that one because that's where we're reading stuff in for right now. We'll keep that one. We'll keep that one. So this entry right here. So I'm gonna actually maybe I'll keep that one. Get rid of that one. Okay. That should clean up our console a little bit. Perfect. All right, so when we switch items, we should still get something, but after that, we shouldn't really have to worry about it. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is when we go to read in this file, which is happening right here, we want to go ahead and read in all of these items. But before we can actually read in the items, we need to figure out how many items we have and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to take, let's see, I guess I could probably just take a lot of this stuff. You know, I'm actually just going to copy it. I think this will make it a little easier. And we're essentially going to reverse these operations, right? So we'll go to here right after we read the magic number. And let's see, header size. I don't think we actually need, we don't need that. I don't think we need the version. We can parse that. We do need the field count. We do need to get an item count, right? So that's kind of where some of this other stuff plays into this. Let me get rid of this. So we want to read the header. And we're going to replace all of these sets with gets, right? Now we've already done this magic number up here, right? So that was a get uint32, and we just did a offset up here. In fact, I'm actually just going to do, I'm going to do this, right? And I'm going to say that the magic number is going to use the offset now, right? And we can get rid of this one, right? So we're going to go ahead and just read the header information here instead of a little bit further up. I'm not sure how much of this other stuff we're going to need. I think, actually, this is all just calculating data block sizes. We don't actually need that stuff. We don't need this stuff. We can read all of that stuff. We don't need the buffer and the view. Those are already being read in. I think, let's see, all of, actually I'll keep that for reference for a second. Okay. So, what we're gonna do is essentially the same thing that we did when we were writing, right? So we're gonna read something and then move that number of bytes forward. So we're dealing with a 32-bit int here, so we're gonna move 4 bytes at a time for these guys, right? So this is going to be const version, and we already kind of know the version, right? But we're gonna go ahead and get it anyways, right? And then why do we have? Oh, this isn't version. This is asset type, right? And so it should be binary, which is 9, right? So we should probably check that. So we'll just do, for now, we'll do a console log, asset type is, and then we can do this and say asset type equals 9. Then we have empty string, otherwise we have not. Binary. Binary. So what this is essentially going to say is when we read in the asset type, if it is 9, which we don't need the value here, right? If it is 9, then we go ahead and say, the asset type is binary. If it's not 9, then that's going to cause this to be inserted into the string, and it's going to notify us that it's not binary. We can also do a to-do error out here. If not binary, right? If not binary. Right. So version is the next thing, right? So that's just needs to, again, be a get. And then we want the data block size. So we want to do a const there, data block size equals offset, right? And so this is essentially the way that we are going to read this stuff out, right? So I guess we could do, we can console log this stuff for now, just to kind of get an idea of what we're reading in. So we'll do the version is, right? And then we'll just do version, and we don't actually need to do toString because we're not using a special radix for that. So we'll say the version is that, and then we'll do the data block size is data block size, right? So that's that. And then we have the DB header is going to be next, but I'm actually going to comment that out for a second. All right, so now we can see here, the magic number type is correct. The asset type is binary, so that's correct as well. The version is 1, which is also what we expect. The data block size is undefined, though, so that is kind of interesting. But I think that might be because we have a set here instead of a get. So the data block size is 860. Perfect. Okay, so the data block size basically says how big the data segment of the entire binary file is. And we'll need to know that, when we're allocating memory and stuff, especially on the C side, we'll need to know that. Let me see. Let me just catch up on some chat here. Following a simple software renderer tutorial way back in the day was what really gave me the bug for graphics game programming. Seeing an array of pixels ultimately turn into a 3D world, even a simple one, was magical. Yeah, I agree. That's what got me hooked on it, right? Like, I remember the first game that really made me want to actually create games was actually Grand Theft Auto. The first one, right? There were many other games aside from that, but like the first one that made me actually want to create games was that, because you had this sort of open world that you could go around in, and I thought that was really cool. Mayo TV, I hope I pronounced that correctly. First time chatter, welcome. I'm a newbie in game dev low-level stuff. I want to try creating a game without a GUI engine. 2D isometric city builder RTS. I want to use C or Zig. Heard a lot about STL and Raylib. Can you give some overview of the tools that can be handy, libs, frameworks, tech to use? So I can briefly touch on that, because that's a whole can of worms, right? So it depends, first off, what you're familiar with, right? So you're saying you're fairly new to this stuff. So I would say choose C or Zig. I would tend to go more towards C, and I usually suggest people go towards C first, even if they later go to C++ or some other language like Zig. And the reason I say that is because C you can port to anything, essentially. Whereas Zig may not necessarily be always the case, right? Zig's a great language. It does a lot of great things, but I don't feel like that's a good place to start, right? I feel like C is a better place to start, because when you learn C and you get a good command of the language, picking up another language, especially a C-based language like C++ or Zig or something like that, it'll make that process a heck of a lot easier. Whereas if you try to start with something like Zig or C++ and try to go back to C, I figure that's going to be more difficult, because those other languages tend to abstract a lot of stuff that C is doing under the hood for you, and you're not going to have that lower level understanding. So I would say definitely start with C would be my first suggestion there. And then the second part of the question was, heard a lot about STL and Raylib. So I would write a simple application in both. And I do mean simple, like just a simple platformer or something, like very, very, very small game, maybe even a Flappy Bird clone, right? Write something very small, but write the same game in both, right? Take that time, and then use that to choose which one you want to use, right? Because you may prefer the Raylib way of doing things, you may prefer the STL way of doing things. Both of them are fantastic. Both of them are widely used. But that would be where I would start if you're going that route. I hope that helps. SFML is another one. Yep, LSR. That's true. Yep. Yeah, STL is in C as well. Yeah. Yeah, so SFML, I'm trying to remember. I haven't used that one a lot. I used it a few years ago, but I don't think it has quite all the stuff that STL has in terms of all of the different tools to create a game, right? Like SDL handles, like SFML, isn't that mostly windowing and platform stuff? I think, if I remember correctly. I haven't used it in quite a while. Maybe I'm thinking of. It's also C++. Yeah, I would say start with C based libraries first if you're going to go that route. I would say learn C first and then learn C++, because then you'll really understand what C++ is doing for you, whether you like that or not, right? Let's see. Sorry, I'm out of the loop. Is this localhost server a part of the engine or a separate tool? It is a separate tool. So this is a item. Well, I call it ItemDB. That's actually not really accurate, but it's a tool for us to be able to configure items for the game, as well as localized strings in different languages. And so I chose to develop it as a separate standalone tool that is game specific, because it was just easier to set up this way, and it's not something that's going to be released. It's just an internal tool only. And so this basically generates a binary file. And so we actually have the file being generated now, and we're going to use that. First off, we need to actually read it back into this editor, which is what we're working on now. But then that binary file is actually what we're going to load in the engine, in the C code, right? And so that's kind of the goal here. I wanted to keep all of this kind of configuration, editory stuff for items out of the game engine because I don't feel like it belongs there, or the game code. And incidentally, this is going to be expanded to other things besides just items and strings for sure. Let's see. Bytemap, how are you doing? I am well, thank you for asking. No more motor racing game? Yeah, I decided to table that one for now. It's not canceled, I'm just tabling it because vehicular combat racing games are just not doing well in the market right now. And they haven't for quite some time. So I don't want to make something and put all the effort into making something that's just not going to sell, frankly. So I've put that one on the back burner. I may use parts of that, or may, that may respawn as like a different idea, or maybe a mini game even in this somewhere. But yeah, I went ahead and tabled that one for this project instead. Do you have any specific approach to making cleaner interfaces for cluttered operating system specific data structures? That's kind of a loaded question. So one thing that I try to... Okay, I hate to keep saying this because I feel like I've already said it like 20 times on the stream tonight alone. It depends. It depends on what you're doing. So, like for a game engine, for example, I only abstract the stuff that I have to abstract, right? I only add interfaces for the stuff that I have to actually use, the things that I actually need. And one of the ways that I keep it clean is I only add the stuff that I need. I don't try to think about every little thing that I'm going to need potentially when it comes to platform layer stuff like that. I've done that in the past, and it winds up you wind up writing a bunch of code that you just don't need, right? So one of the ways to keep it clean is to keep it simple, keep it brief, right, and keep it as condensed as possible, and try not to overdo it with how many things you're adding, right? And then generally speaking, like you want to keep those interface points as simple as you possibly can with as few parameters and things like that as you possibly can. One thing that I have switched to doing, and there are other places in the engine that I actually need to update this to, is I've very much liked the paradigm of whenever I'm doing something, I have a structure that contains all of the option data that I need for a particular operation, and I pass the structure. And the nice part about that is that is very easy to refactor, right? Because you don't have to add or remove parameters. You just have a parameter that is a struct, and then the struct changes. So if you add or remove something from the struct, you're not having to refactor all of your functions and everything that calls that function. I mean, you might have to refactor some of the stuff that calls that function if you're adding something and you need something to use that feature, but you're not changing the structure of your code all over the place. So I guess I hope that's what you're going for. I'm not 100% sure. That's, like I said, it's kind of a loaded question, right? But in interface design in general, that's kind of what I try to shoot for. Since I discovered the way you do interfaces and implementations and see a whole new world open up, I found that C++ enforces specific things, and C, the world is your oyster. Writing C is a joy. I 100% agree. That's why I love C. Let's see. Tried Zig stuff already. Did super small game of life with Raylib. It was a bit overwhelming with all this setup. But I do need tutorials for basic stuff to wrap my head around. It's a bit hard on the Zig side of things. Your words did make me consider to just start with C first. Thanks for the advice. No problem. Yeah, that's one of the things, like, so there's actually something I left out too. One thing that I tell people also that want to get into game development is don't try to learn a language and game development and all those concepts at once. Don't do it. You're going to burn yourself out. There's way too much to take in all at once. If you don't have a good command of C or C++ or whatever language you want to use to do it, stop what you're doing and get good at that language. Now, for C, for example, what I usually say is, and I know this sounds like a bit of a mundane task, right? But for C, in order to get a good handle on the language, what I usually suggest people do is they write a string processing library. Take a look at one of the higher level programming languages like C# or something, and look at all of the various functions that those languages provide and re-implement them from scratch in C. Don't use the standard library. Don't use any of that stuff. Re-implement all that stuff from scratch in C. You do that, and you're going to be much, much better with the language. You're going to have a decent command of the language, and at that point, then go and start figuring out graphics programming stuff. But yeah, don't try and learn a language and graphics programming at the same time. It's a bad idea. C++ tends to overwhelm you with syntax and features that you don't really need to know. Yes. As you're learning, despite what they'll tell you on the forums. Yeah, like operator overloading and streams. Just to write a single string to the console, for example. Yes. That's the most egregious thing that I always use, right? Like C++, like you have to do, this, right? And they teach you to do it this way, Oops. Right, and there's multiple issues with this, right? But like, look at all the stuff that's going on in that line, right? Just to write text to screen in C++, right? That is a crazy amount of things going on there. You got namespacing, you've got streams, you've got, all this crazy kind of stuff, right? Whereas in C, you have that. It's just, this is a lot easier to understand for somebody that's just coming at it, right? And even, you don't necessarily have to even start with that for your first hello world. That's just the thing. But like, anyway. Yeah, templates. Don't even get me started on templates. Yeah. But yeah, it's just that, all of the beginner C++ stuff is just so littered with like C++ isms and overcomplicated stuff that you just don't need to do when you're trying to learn from scratch. %, second that writing stuff from C in Scratch. Wait, wow, my dyslexia kicked in hardcore there. Okay, I 100% second that writing stuff from scratch in C advice. I've been doing that for a while. Definitely agree that doing graphics while learning the language is a tough task. Yep, exactly. Yep. Template compiler errors. Yeah, that's a whole other story too. I have a love-hate relationship with C++. I love a lot of what you can do with it if you know it, but man, my code gets so verbose sometimes. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, and I think everybody that's programmed in C++ for any length of time will tell you the same thing. It's a love-hate relationship, right? Like, there are things that I really like about C++ as well. Those things aren't enough to make me actually switch from C in most cases. That's just how it is, right? All right. Anyway, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I love C++, but I do find it annoying how many library functions there are just to avoid doing a for loop. Oh, don't even get me started on that either. And they call regular loops boomer loops too, right? Like, as if it's a bad thing. All right. Okay. So, I guess let's do. So we have item field counts, item count, item data block size. Okay, so these are all things that we're going to be able to retrieve. So that's perfect. And I suspect the same is going to be true with. I suspect that the same is going to be true with at least these two. String length size, maybe not. And then items header size and strings header size. Did we... I don't think we need those sizes, actually. Okay. So we need to take this guy. And do that. And then we have item count. All right, and then item data block size. I'm not 100% sure that we're actually going to need this, but let's go ahead and read it in anyway. This is basically just letting us know how many bytes the item data block, the actual data block full of item data is. So I guess, it doesn't hurt to read that in. And then we can do string counts and string data block size. And I suppose we could just write these things out too, right? Again, we don't necessarily have to print this stuff out all the time. But I feel like while we are still in the early phases of this, we should probably print everything. So I guess let me actually just do this. Right? So string counts, string data block size. We're just going to read all these properties in directly. We'll probably store them in some sort of structure, maybe, at some point, but for now, so let's see, item field counts, and this is just item counts. All right, let's see if all these things are read correctly. I assume that they probably are. So our item field count is 24. So that's how many fields we have in each item, right? So that's essentially all of these fields here minus ID. So the item count is 4. We do have 4 items here, right? This default string, remember, is sort of a default item. Item data block size is 384, which kind of makes sense, given that, you know, the 384 and the 456 should essentially take up what is, well, technically, I guess it's 860 is the entire data block for the binary file. And then we have an item header, which is 12 bytes. So the 12 bytes plus 384 plus 8 bytes for the string header plus 456 should give us 860. So I guess I could just do that here. So we have 384 plus the 12 bytes for the header plus the 8 bytes for the string header plus 456, which gives us 860, right? So at least we know that these numbers add up correctly, and that you know, we are reading those back in from the binary file here as we should be. Use iterators, yeah, I know, right? I mean, iterators can be handy sometimes, but like I've even tried reinventing iterators in C, and it almost is never worth it, actually. It's usually much better to just do a simple for loop. It's faster. What's your opinion on Odin as compared to C? I, unfortunately, am not qualified to speak on it because I've not used it. I've read about it. It seems to be a very solid language. I know people that have used it that like it. And that tends to be true with Zig also. But my personal take on both of those, and again, I say this not having used them, is I don't like extra dependencies, first off. So, you know, having those compilers is an extra dependency. I know that they are sort of developed by one person, essentially, in both cases. I know there's other people that contribute to it, but there's essentially one person running the show in both cases. And that to me, I don't know, like, if they get bored working on it at some point, like, maybe somebody else could pick it up, but it's not like, it's not as widely used as C or C++, right? So to me, that makes me feel a little bit weird about it. It's kind of like my same feeling on Jai, although Jai is not open source at the moment, so it also has that working against it. You know, if Jonathan decides he doesn't want to work on Jai anymore, then what? You know. So yeah, I, in my opinion, I would rather just use C. But I say that not having used either one of those. One of these times, we will try it. Maybe I could set like subscriber goals on YouTube or something like that. Like if we hit 100,000 subs, maybe I'll do something along those lines. Like maybe we'll write a game in Scratch using either Zig or Odin, right? You know, with OpenGL or something. I don't know. And maybe that would be kind of a fun thing to do as well. We'll see where that winds up. All right. No, from Scratch, not in Scratch. I do not want to use Scratch. No. No, I already... So I know a lot of you probably aren't going to be aware of this, but I actually did set up a challenge a long time ago that says if my YouTube channel ever hits 1 million YouTube subscribers, that I will write a Vulkan renderer using assembly. So if that ever happens, which I don't think it ever will, but if that ever happens, yeah, that's going to be that challenge, right? So that should be interesting because I've never written something that size in assembly ever. But yeah, anyways, I digress. Okay. Time to get to work, guys. Yeah, I know, right? Taking your no extra dependencies sentiment to heart and building a bunch of tooling for a project by hand. It's super fun. I think it is too. Yeah. I quite enjoy doing that. Um, I like building my own tools for stuff, right? Because it really gives you control over, the workflow from end to end. Um, and if it sucks, it's your fault. But yeah, you can change it too. So yeah, it's been refreshing for sure. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Rashay, thank you for the dumpster fire. I mean, yeah, this kind of does look like a dumpster fire at the moment, though, to be fair. Okay. So, now comes the time because I think we did the strings header too, right? Yes, we did. Okay, so now we essentially have to reverse this operation and build out our list of items. Yeah, this is going to be fine. This is going to be... You know what? In fact, I'm actually going to copy all of this stuff. Because it's essentially the same operation that we have to do. And so it makes sense to just kind of use the same code, right? Essentially the same code. Okay, so we have item counts. So item count is here. So essentially what we're doing now is we are starting, we're using the same offset, so we're progressing through the file the same way. It's just instead of writing, now we're reading. So the difference being is the way that this loop is going to work. So I'm not 100% sure. I almost feel like we should probably do this up here. And then take this bit, go down to the end. And say this equals item, right? And then essentially, at this point, all we're going to do is just a bunch of sets, right? So we're essentially going to take this, change that to an equal sign. Actually, is that it? And then instead of set, we'll change to get. I think that is all we actually need to do. So I think what I'll do, let's see, I guess I could probably just do a... let me actually... I'm going to record a macro for this. So we want to move this up 2 lines, go to the end, replace that with an equal sign. And then quit recording. So let me see if this actually works. It does. Let's see. So gotta love Vim macros. So let's see, we need that one. So we just do this for all of the fields. And we'll have to go back in a separate pass and change these all to gets instead of sets. So let's see, max damage, attack rates, and additional. Okay. So that's that. And then we'll just have to do the change there to gets, because that's probably not loving life right now when it tries to parse this and is like, what are you trying to do, guy? All right, so we just have these. And then how many more of these do we have left? Not too many. I don't want to just do a find and replace on it because that's going to be too many. I don't want to like mess it up throughout the entire file, right? So we'll just do a couple of these, and then I think that's it. Right, okay, so we've got that. So now, assuming this has worked correctly, these items are here, and they seem to be working correctly. But the real question is, if I go to our initialization code here, where we have our items being created, and I comment all of that out, what do we get here? We don't have anything. Interesting. Okay, so why is that? Import binary file. Oh, that might be because we didn't await. Which I don't think... Actually, that shouldn't matter. Yes, it does matter, because this has to complete before these things can run. All right, thank you for the follows. I appreciate that. NeoVim looks fancy with all the icons and stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is about as fancy as I get with it. Yeah, over here on the left. Okay. And if I'm doing that, that means that this also needs to be async. Okay, so why aren't we getting... Have I missed something here? Have I... Oh, it might be... There might be something here messing things up. Let me comment this out for now. Okay, so it's reading all this stuff. But for some reason, it's not actually setting the state. So it said item counts. We do have item count is 4, right? So I guess I could do... Let me go to the bottom of this and do... an item log here. Okay. So they do exist. They do exist. Oh, interesting. Now they're listed here. Huh? Did I have some sort of weird caching thing going on? Okay, well, it seems to be doing the thing now. Okay, so if we look at these properties, I'm going to maximize this for a second. If we look at these properties, obviously the strings are wrong. But it looks like a lot of the other properties got kept, which is good. So I guess I need to, we probably need to, oh, the strings are in, wait, the strings are in here too, but I'm not importing the strings. Oh, they're still in here because I haven't actually disabled them yet. That's why. Okay. So let's re-enable this code. And then what we're going to do is we essentially have to reverse this option, right? So we need to do let string size equals this. We need to get uint32, right? At the given offset, right? So that's going to be that. And then we need to move the offset, and then for string size, we need to get uint8, right? And we're going to do, I guess this is going to be a byte array, right? So we're going to need, let's see, how do I want to do this? I guess we could do a byte array, like a U8 byte array. Add everything into that, and then maybe use text encoder to reverse it. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Wes Terminal, I needed to follow you. Yeah, Wes Term is awesome. I use the heck out of it, actually. I like it because it's a fast terminal emulator that is cross-platform. So I use it on Linux, Mac, and Windows. Appreciate the follow. Welcome. All right, so I'm thinking, let's do let bytes equals new. What the heck is the type? Is it uint 8 array of size, string size, right? And then we should be able to do bytes sub I equals, and then actually, like this doesn't, we don't need that. We don't need that. So let's see, the offsets, this is get uint8, this is gonna be bytes, oh, our iterator is k, yeah, okay. So instead of writing into it, we're reading this time around. And then once we have the bytes, I'm trying to think if, is it text encoder decode? Let me grab, that's probably foobarring, isn't it? Yeah. Strings. We don't have those. Oh, language count is not defined. Okay. We don't have language. State languages length. We did not serialize that out, did we? I don't believe we did. Bollocks. Okay. So that needs to be part of the... That needs to be part of the strings header. Okay, so we'll add that here. We'll do language count. And then when we go to read this back in, we'll have to also essentially do the same thing in the opposite direction. So import. When we do this, I think we said we'd do that first. So const language count equals that. Now we should have it. There we go. Okay, so that's loading correctly again. I just want to take, we'll use a Japanese example here. So we'll use the health potion. And I want to grab this string. And I want to essentially do the opposite of what was done before. So I guess probably what this is going to give me is a text encoder, blah, 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 blah. I essentially need to undo this operation, right? So if I do new text encoder, oh, I actually have it here. So let's do bytes equal this, right? So bytes itself is a uint8 array, right? So if we have decode, does that mean that I then do new text encoder decode bytes? I'm not sure that that's right. Decode is not a function, so I guess I need to look up text encoder to see what that is all about. Let's put this here. Encode into. Okay, that's to encode into an array. Is there a... Oh, it's text decoder. I assumed it would be the same thing. Okay. So that's going to be, we need text decoder. Decode bytes, and that should give us the string. It does. Okay. All right. So for us to get that actual string back, now I actually have a cleaner interface to do this in C, believe it or not. But what we essentially need to do is take this guy, come down here. After we've read all the data out of the byte array, we need to have a text decoder decode, and then we pass it bytes. Right? Okay, so this essentially reverses the operation that we did before to go ahead and grab our UTF-8 string from the file instead of pushing it to the file. Now, we have that, which means the real test for this, which actually I need to re-export, come think about it, because... let's see. It's outside the bounds of the data view. Oh, right, because I actually know what this problem is too. So this is bleating because our export binary file, we had the header sizes, right, of 12 and 8, and we added a field to the string header size. So that needs to be 12 now. Which I don't think I needed that down below. Reading that, I don't think I needed it. I think we just read it and we get what we need. But because of the way that the array buffer here works, we have to pre-compute the size that we need, which we're also going to have to do on the C side. So that's not really a huge issue. Now I should be able to export ItemDB bin. We want to overwrite that. And it looks like oh, I didn't actually remove the test strings. So let's go ahead and let's remove this, or I'm just going to comment this out for now. So this is languages. So just to recap, this is essentially what we're writing to the file, right? So we have a language index, and then within each language we have the string table for that language. So what that should do, and it's not for some reason, state languages is not iterable. Populate string listing. Okay, so state languages is not iterable. So I actually know why that is too. So when we go to import the languages, we actually have not created the array here yet. So we'll do language tables. So we'll do state languages equals, and I'll just do this, right? Just an empty array. That should be enough for now. And then for each one of these languages, we are also going to have to do state languages sub I equals empty array, right? And because of JavaScript magic and all that stuff, it's just going to, expand the array as we need it. We'll have to be a little bit more careful in the C code, but this should work, I believe. Let's see. State.language is not iterable. Okay, why? What am I missing here? So we have state.languages is equal to, I did create this as an array, right? Yes, I did. So it's an array of arrays. That should do the same thing. In fact, languages is already created here. Before we do any of this. So actually, we don't even need to do this part. Language is 0. We are creating a new array for each of these languages as we go through. And then we're adding the elements here. Am I doing something stupid? No, because these all come after this guy. Maybe we need to export one more time. I'm not sure. Let me see if we need to reading length. Did I mess up the Languages 0 length. Oh, right. Yeah, export wouldn't work, obviously. Yeah, it wouldn't work because we don't have any languages loaded correctly. Okay, so let me think about this. Do we have I guess what I could do is like spit these out and see what they are, right? So I guess we could do actually, let's do this. Let's do this so that we can actually see the indices, and then do and then actually do the value of that. So we'll do this here. Okay, so that's interesting. So it's not giving us state languages is not iterable. 203. Oh. Oh, wait a minute, though. That should be populate string listing should not be called until after import binary file is done. So we should be seeing, let me just echo this out, I guess. Let's see, we're doing, oh, this is the set. I don't want that. So if we're not getting this, what is our language count then? Are we reading in language count? Did we forget to read in language count? Language count is undefined. Okay. Is that because... Oh, I see what's happened. So we actually exported a file that didn't have the language count in it to begin with. And now we can't read that back in because we don't have that. Okay, so I think what I'll have to do to fix this temporarily is instead of reading this in this time around, we know that we have 3 languages in here. So we'll hard code it. Okay, so this is all displaying object, which is not right either. So did this not give me what I was expecting back? This should have given me back a string. Right, new text decoder decode. Should have done. Right, so if we have, let me move this up here so you guys can see this a little bit better, instead of it being behind my head. So if we encode this string, right, and then we have, let's see, where was that? Then we do a text decoder decode bytes, right? And let's save this off as like let s equal that. S is just a string. Right, and if we take a look at what bytes is, that's a uint8 array. Okay. And that's pretty much the same thing I'm doing in code. Is it that it just doesn't like this for some reason? Why is that printing as an object and not a string? Let me catch up on some chat here. Okay. Oh, I missed a few messages. Okay, time to catch up on some chat. Have a C question. When should you use fixed length integers? Using C++, but imagine you set your own macros for types in Kohi. The prevailing answer to that, which I see is it depends. Fixed length integers. Do you mean... Okay, when you say fixed length, what length are you talking about specific? Like what? Give me some context around there about what you mean when you talk about fixed length. Game engine and JavaScript? No. The game engine is actually in C. This is an external tool that we're writing that is game specific, not specific to the engine. And so it's an item editor for our 3D isometric action RPG. So this is a tool that I'm writing to allow us to quickly be able to configure items and then write those out to a binary database. And then the C code, the game code / engine code, will be able to read in this binary database that we're writing out, and it'll be able to pull localized string info, item info, and eventually other thends as we add it. That's kind of what we're doing now. So yeah, it is a C-based engine using Vulkan as its rendering API backend. But right now we're actually writing an external tool for it. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but yeah. Do I have a standing desk? Yes, I do. Arch, by the way. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I actually named my machine Arch, by the way, for the memes. Arvis, I'm always doing something stupid. Yeah, I'm always doing something stupid as well. Babilki? Babliki? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I probably butchered that horribly. Sorry about that. But first time chatter, welcome. Line 203. Line 203. What did I miss on line 203? Oh, is this for the... I think this is for the last error that I was looking at. Okay. Transparent and blurry background is very sexy, if I may say so. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was a little bit tricky to get that working on KDE, actually. But, yeah, it's nice. I like it. It looks pretty good, I think. Especially if I, like, move this window from behind it. I think it looks pretty nice. It's kind of subtle, right? But not so boring. Let's see. Do you work on your beard or do you just let it grow? It's so magnificent. Thank you for that. I have good facial hair growth, but I need to trim parts of it, and so it's even, and I don't look like a caveman. Well, I look like very much like a caveman at the moment because I haven't actually done much trimming maintenance on it recently. Yeah, I normally don't do too much. I kind of go at it with clippers every once in a while, but I'm trying to see like how long it'll actually go. But I think I'm actually limiting. I'm hitting my limit, I think, because it hasn't actually gained like much length over the past few months. So you look like a warrior king. I appreciate that. Code warrior, maybe, not to be confused with the editor. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's fun. All right. So why are we not? So for some reason, when we're reading these back in, it's treating all of these strings as objects, which is really stupid. Because I think when we do it this way, if I do yeah, this is a string. These are all string functions. This is all, so it's a legitimate string when we do it this way. We do new text encoder decode, which is what we're doing here. So we decode the byte array and then use it here. The only thing does it want me to do like a toString? That seems kind of stupid. No, it had no effect on it. And these are all, of course, coming up undefined. It does look like the right number of indices, at least, so that's good. I wonder if my byte array has to include a null terminator when I actually encode this stuff. That's about the only thing I can think of. But again, I would think the text decoder would just handle that. Like, that's not something I should have to worry about at this level, I don't think. I guess let me try, instead of doing it this way, we'll do that, and then we'll paste this here, and then say equals string, just to make our lives a little bit easier. And actually, instead of doing this, let's actually just let's just spit out the string, right? Object. Is there something in here that I'm missing? Returns a string containing the text decoded with the method of the specific text decoder object. So this is literally how I've done this. I did use a uint8 array, which should be sufficient, I would think. Default is UTF-8 or UTF-8, which is exactly what I want. So specifications, encoding, blah, 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 blah. Support has been around for forever for this. I mean, I guess I could spit this out, but like, I'm not understanding why I'm getting an object back here instead of a string. Is your encoder just turning an object to a string? Yeah, so it should be... The encoder is essentially doing the exact opposite of this, right? So like if we go to where we're writing it out, which is here, for each one, we're doing a text encoder encode, right? Which when I did that in here, right? So this is an example of what it would be doing. I think that's behind my head. Let me blow this up a little bit. Right, so like when we do this in the console as a test, right, I'm doing the same thing here, new text encoder encode, and I'm passing a UTF-8 string, right, with like multi-byte characters. That returns to us a uint8 array, right? So that is basically the bytes here, right? And then I get the length of that array, right? And I write out the length of that array to the file. And then I loop through and write out those individual bytes as uint8s, right? Since it's a uint8 array that we get back. So we write out each one of those, moving the offset forward, and then we move on to the next one, right? And then when we undo this, we're essentially doing the opposite, right? So we get the string size first, which would have been stored first. And then we say the bytes, the byte array is a uint8 array of that size, right? And then we essentially just get the uint8, bytes from that, and then pass that to decoder. The only thing I can think of is that state languages sub I, sub j on the encoder is not actually a string. You're talking about like when we actually go to decode it in the first place, or to encode it in the first place into the file. So you are correct, because I'm an idiot. I had forgotten that I created... Oh, what a dingus. All right, so this is a fine example of dingus-oriented programming. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to temporarily re-enable this. Let me go here, re-enable this, and disable this bit where we read it in for a second. You are absolutely right, by the way. Okay, so so we have our strings back, right? All of our strings are here. Let me just double check. Yes, okay. So before I export this, I am basically taking state languages, blah, blah, blah here, right? And I'm encoding the actual object, which is dumb. The actual object itself is localized string, which has an ID and a value. I don't actually need the ID, because the ID is actually the index into an array, right? So like this ID, the localized string ID, like this is very temporary stuff. So really all I care about is the value as far as that getting written to the file. So what this should have is value. And then when we go to read that back in fact, before I do that, let me export this again. Let's see. Offset is outside bounds of data view. Okay. So why would that be the case? Right, because it should be state languages ij value would be the string. Right, so actually I can just to be explicit, right, we could do let string equals this, right, and then log string, right? And then we go to export this, and we should see Oh, now it worked. Was it cached? Yeah, see, those are the actual strings. Okay, so let me cancel this. Oh, it worked because I didn't pass anything here. So, why would the string count is 8, language count is 3? Does that seem correct? Yes, string count is 8. Okay. So are we not exporting some form of data correct here? So language counts, it almost seems like this, for some reason, is going out of bounds. Oh, because I know what it is. I'll bet it's our initial calculation is also wrong. Because we actually have to do this twice. And string byte length here is actually just looking for this to be a string. And so this is actually also passing the wrong thing. So when we were calculating how big our data block needed to be, it wasn't big enough, essentially. Okay, so I don't, let's see. Okay. This undefined ID actually does make sense because I haven't actually hooked that up yet. All right, so if we export this, overwrite, and then come back down here, and we will turn these back off. And enable this again. We should so we are reading this in, let's see. Oh, okay. So this is sort of the other half of that problem. Okay. All right. So we can't just say string here. We also have to say value here. And then states, languages, I, J. ID is going to wind up being just J, which we could probably get away with just nuking that entire structure, to be completely honest. All right. So strings. Wait a minute. Properties of undefined setting ID. What did I do? Did I do something? Oh, right. Right. It's not going to like that because that actually needs to be... We have to set that as an object because that's actually not going to exist, right? So it needs to be ID, J, comma, right? And then value, string. That, I think, is what it needs. Yes. Okay. All right. So let's check a couple of our strings here. Yes. And our IDs are lined up and everything. So cool. All right. So now we are actually loading this from the file. So that's good. I do see a bug here. We're not loading the item ID correctly into the display here, so that we need to fix that. So one thing that we're doing is when we're reading in, the item itself, the item ID is not being filled in, and that just basically going to be item.id equals I. And there we have it, right? So the default string, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. That seems off by 1. Default string should be the first item. Okay. I is 0, I is less than item count. Did those get written out in a weird way? When we went to go write those out, nope, we just wrote them, yeah, 0 to item count. So why is this off by 1? What did we learn? Yeah, I know, right? So we learned not to be a dingus. No, we didn't, because we'll be a dingus again on stream, for sure. Let me think. Oh, was that ID or item ID? It is ID. So it should be item ID should be That's interesting. I'm not sure why that is off. When we actually load this stuff up, all right, let's stop echoing out the strings when we load this up, actually. Are we not? Yeah, there it is. Okay. Let's not do that first and foremost. Okay. Yeah, that's very bizarre because these item IDs are just wrong. The string IDs look correct. Somehow items got foobarred. Looks like all the data is correct. State items sub I equals item. I mean, I guess I can do this, right? And just write out what the items are as we read them. So, yeah, item ID 0 is indeed. It was written to the file that way. Okay. So that might have gotten screwed up one of the times when we were actually doing... That might have gotten screwed up one of the times we were actually doing imports. So what I'll do is I'll turn off imports. I'll turn these back on. And I'll re-export. Let's refresh a couple times. Right, this is what it should look like. So we'll export this. ItemDB. Right, and then we'll undo these changes. And we'll use the import this time around. Yeah, okay. It must have just been a bad export previously. Because now these things are loading in the correct way. Perfect. All right. Cool. So this actually sets us up really well, so that we can actually edit items and like be able to import them into the game engine. So I guess that's going to be the next step, but obviously we are out of time for tonight's stream. So yeah, we'll have to pick that up on the next stream when we go ahead and read this in on the C side. Let's see. Let me find somebody to raid. See who I can, see if there's anybody that is doing something similar to what we are doing. And while I'm looking for somebody to raid, if you guys have not already, I would really appreciate a follow either on the Twitch side, the YouTube side, both if you're so inclined, to help me grow the channel. I really would appreciate it a lot. I appreciate you guys being here and interacting with me and discussing and whatnot. It was super fun tonight. We actually made some pretty decent progress. Aside from the little bit of dingus-oriented programming we did, we actually were pretty successful, I feel like, overall. Let me see. Programming streams doesn't seem like there's too much of it, at least as far as game dev is concerned at the moment. So I think I know who I'm going to raid, but I'm just taking a quick second to just kind of keep looking through. Actually, I don't think we've raided this person before. There's somebody doing learning shaders in C++ game dev. Let's check this out. Z.A. Shaw. Let's go ahead and let's raid them and see what they're up to. And yeah, so join me in raiding them. Definitely ask them about what they're up to. And you know, maybe toss them a little bit of support if you like their stuff too. I'm certainly going to give them a follow, looks like. So yeah, anyways, I will catch you guys on the next stream. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I will see you guys later.